A lot of our Australian brands fetch more in secondary markets than they retail for. We've had dresses that have been rented 72 times. And I think it has been an error to ignore the power of your product and not to see your product as a marketing channel. I'm Bernadette Olivier, and I am the CEO of Seamlist and the Volte. And in this episode of Add to Cart, we talk about how retailers can promote the circular economy to drive commercial outcomes.
What if your customers could buy your product and then earn money from that product after they buy it? What if you could earn money from that same product when your customers sell it again and again and again? That's a pretty wild concept, right? That's what we're going to dive into today. My name is Nathan Bush, or Bushy, joining you from the land of the Turrbal people here in Brisbane, Australia. Today, I am joined by Bernadette Olivier, CEO and co-founder of the Volte, Australia's leading peer-to-peer designer rental marketplace. The Volte has built a community of more than 5,000 super lenders. They're women running real micro businesses by monetizing their wardrobes. But what's really interesting now is Seamlist, their other product, and it's the infrastructure layer that's connecting retail, rental, and resale. And they're already working with brands like Cotton On, David Jones, eBay, and a growing list of retail partners who are integrating Seamless at checkout. They're using blockchain to help track products post-purchase, especially in the fashion space, authenticate items with digital passports, and earn royalties every time that an item resells or rents. In this episode, we unpack, and there is so much to unpack here, why peer-to-peer rental models work when traditional rental models have struggled a little bit recently. We talk about how resale can become a customer acquisition channel even when you're not getting the sale direct, why circularity isn't cannibalization, it's actually distribution, and how AI and blockchain are actually becoming retail and circularity infrastructure. A big thank you, as always, to Shopify and Klaviyo for supporting Add to Cart and helping bring these conversations to the e-commerce community. Here's my conversation with Bernadette Olivier from The Volte and Seamless. Bernadette, welcome to Add to Cart.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is great to have you here. I am looking at my questions. I've got 1,000 questions for you today because you've got such an interesting business and idea. But first, let's start with The Volte. So The Volte is a rental platform. Tell me how you had the idea for The Volte.
So I was actually a lawyer at a hedge fund in UK and New York when Rent the Runway exploded. Also Airbnb and Uber. And so it was the really rise of this sort of sharing economy. And what I didn't understand, because Rent the Runway actually emerged at the same time, was why that was a B2C model as opposed to peer-to-peer, because I always thought the B2C model was going to have limitations in terms of supply, and just we all want the same thing at the same time. And, that's even escalated even more now with the rise of like TikTok and micro trends and things. And plus, even though I was, a poor lawyer at a hedge fund.
No one's ever said that. Come on.
I know everyone cries about lawyers all the time. I probably just wanted to wear fancier stuff than I could afford. Plus, I'm like, if I buy it, I'd like to be able to earn from it. And so that was really the beginning of the idea. And then when I moved back to Australia, I also saw this exploding cottage industry of dress hire, small businesses. And so we now have over 5,000 women building businesses on the Volte. And why that's important is that's really allowed us to deliver a B2C level of service to borrowers, despite being peer-to-peer, because peer-to-peer is a difficult beast to steer.
So is that the big differentiation from the Rent the Runways and even Glam Corner, who we've had Dean on the show before, is that yours more is peer-to-peer, so enabling people to create their own marketplaces, essentially, their own wardrobes to be able to rent out and manage themselves?
Exactly. So I think Dean is a fantastic Australian founder. The Glam Corner team is really impressive. Ours is just slightly different because the unit economics are different. So when you're a company and you're buying the inventory, the unit economics are far more aggressive. You need it to deliver, a 10x return. Whereas if I buy a Zimmermann dress and rent it out as an individual, anytime it rents out, I'm winning because I'm just trying to recruit some of the money I spent.
So all of a sudden your wardrobe's an asset. I've heard that before, but I've never believed it.
Oh, no, I could tell you probably 5 brands if you bought I mean, I'm sure a cocktail dress would look beautiful on you, Nathan.
Thank you.
But if there were 5 brands, if you buy those, they will pay themselves off within 6 months if you list it on the roll.
Give me a hint. Who are those?
I mean, Zimmerman. So, Alamay, we've got amazing, it's Camilla and Mark. We've got amazing Australian designers and they rent incredibly well. They're made really well. And what I love is that it allows people who are never in the market. Most people do not have $1,000 numerous times a year to buy a Zimmerman dress, $600, $500, depending on the price point. But they're able to rent a dress. They're able to learn the difference between a product you buy on Shein and Temu and one of these beautiful products our Australian designers wear. And rather than it cannibalizing retail, it's actually becomes this huge customer acquisition stream. A lot of our users, our data, because we've been going around, like forever, 6 years, is that someone will rent, say, Rebecca Valance, they'll love it. And so then they'll buy workwear or they'll buy bathers or something because, we also think rental is quite niche. It's occasion wear, well-made garments. We don't think people are going to be renting Lululemon.
Yeah.
We're not for that. So,
Please don't. Let's not get into renting activewear.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people are suggesting that's the thing. I think rental, it's a special occasion thing. And I think what's amazing is that I think with the rise of Shein and Temu, it's never been more important to communicate with consumers that when you buy this Camilla dress, you're going to be able to earn from it. And also it's going to have value on the resale economy. Whereas if you buy a dress from Shein or Temu, that's disposable and it has no value.
Yeah. And tell me about some of your sellers. Like you said, some people have made some really great businesses out
Oh
of
my
this.
gosh. There was a time for about COVID where we really looked at our data because we were kind of going great guns and then COVID. That was not great for dress rental.
I can imagine. There's not too many events during COVID, was there?
No, I think it was my first interview with the Film Review and they said, well, are people dressing up for Zooms? I was like, no,
No.
absolutely not. Like no one is doing that. But we've really had so many of we call them super lenders. A lot of them have been with us since the beginning. They've built really amazing businesses. They are savvy entrepreneurs. Like if a dress they love, but it doesn't rent, or maybe it's too delicate because our dresses are utilized so much more than if it's just in my cupboard as an individual. They are so savvy. They know how to sell. So they're really impressive women. And it's this huge cottage industry. There's also a lot of students, but I think the belief is that everybody who's a super lender is like an influencer when they come from all walks of life. Like we have grandmothers who are making an enormous amount of money, but no, they're really impressive women. And it's something that I'm incredibly proud of to be a part of.
And how do you empower them to sell? Like they sound like they're their own marketing machines. How do you empower them to build their own cottage industry storefront?
Well, it was already sort of existing before the Vault. We just saw it, and most of them were bricks and mortar, and they didn't have a lot of online reach. That sort of changed with the rise of Instagram and, the commoditization of websites. But at the same time, what hasn't changed, it's never been easier to have a website. It's never been harder to get traffic. So we're really a sales channel for them. So just like, we have a lot of small businesses on, say, Airbnb, they're very similar, but they were our white hot center. We quickly realized they were the most important users that we have on the Vault. And we build a lot around what is good for them, what's important to them, how do they scale their business, because the growth of their business grows us. So I think we've got something like a 90% retention rate of super lenders. And part of that is making sure that we're always trying to deliver them value.
And so from your marketing perspective, as you're building out the Vault, is most of your marketing effort on getting more super lenders into the system? Like how do you manage the supply and demand when you've got a two-sided marketplace like you've got?
Yeah. Super lenders were initially the real way that we got a lot of supplies. Almost 100% of our paid marketing has been for borrowers, has been that demand. But we also have super lender acquisition, but it's definitely more like a B2B kind of sales channel. And now we're lucky enough that we're now getting word of mouth. So super lenders just continue to grow. But we have things that we look for. And if someone's beginning to kind of ramp up their earnings, we then put them in part of our super lender program and things like that. But definitely our paid marketing is predominantly focused on borrowers. I don't want to kind of jump ahead, but the other way we're now getting more and more lenders is through our other business, which is Seamlist, which, yeah, I'm not sure we can talk about.
Yeah, let's get into it. Like, tell us about Seamless, because it sounds like Seamless is kind of the thing empowering everything. Like, it seems to be the rails.
We really see it as the infrastructure for resale and rental, but predominantly resale, because resale was just so much bigger. Because what we've done is we've really embedded resale in the existing consumer behavior. And why this is important is, even though we have these amazing resale platforms like Depop and eBay and Vinted, only 20% of consumers have ever resold anything.
Mm.
And the main reason for that isn't that they don't trust these platforms. It isn't that it's too expensive. It's because it takes too long. So, and the other issue that a lot of the resale platforms have is counterfeit goods. We did was we have captured products and customers before that resale intent exists. So when you're shopping on one of our brand partners, say David Jones, you can save your purchase from checkout, and we're beginning to roll out also order history, and you can then list it when you're ready to sell, and you don't have to do anything. So the photo or the attributes, that listing's ready to go, and you can list it on eBay to sell or the Vault to lend. And why it's important for retailers is there's been a lot of discussion about supply chains and a lot of work going into that. But I think the biggest black hole for retail is that most retailers don't know what happens to their product post-purchase. And what this is really doing is really showing them, well, this is where your product is. This is how it's being interacted with on a secondary market. And in addition, every time that item is rented or resold on eBay or the Vault, the retailer gets a royalty. So they begin to earn from the whole life cycle of that garment. And why that's important is eBay is getting something in the sense that that garment is authenticated. So they don't have to worry, is this a real Zimmerman dress or a real Alame dress? And then Alame and Zimmerman are being rewarded for making items that are durable, that are beautiful, and that are capable of having more than one owner, which is what we need.
Okay. So do they get a cut on the resale and the rental, or just the resale?
Every
Wow.
time, every single time that item transacts.
And this is only if the seller is bought via Seamlist?
Currently,
Okay.
we have, plans for other things, like we have a digital passport, but I can see that the royalty will live in that. We've built it on the blockchain, will live in that digital passport. But at the moment, the royalties only exist if you opt into Seamlist at one of our brand partners.
Okay. So the brand partners go in there and they say, actually, we'll add Seamlist into our product page checkout to say that, hey, if you buy this, register your item, it'll always be attached to you. So that when you rent it or you resell it, you'll be the authorized owner of this, and we can certify that it's the real deal and that you can make money off it, essentially. But then does the customer also know that the designer will make money off it through that chain as well?
I don't think it's important to the customer. So the real value proposition for the customer is save your item, and in one click, you can list it on eBay. Shortly, other platforms, you'll be able to cross-list on multiple resale platforms. And when it's sold, it will automatically delist it on the other platforms. So for the customer, it's really about not having to create the listing, not having to create an account, not having to get a photo, and being able to really easily sell their item. A lot of the things in our roadmap this year is also about triggers. So letting you know, oh, you bought this Camilla dress, there's huge demand for that on eBay right now. So being able to really incentivize people to say, oh, actually, I don't really wear that. And what is actually amazing, a lot of our Australian brands fetch more in secondary markets than they retail for.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's like, I know my wife does a little bit of getting rid of old items through Facebook groups and things like that, but it doesn't have the authenticity, doesn't have the trust that you've got. I was interested there that you mentioned blockchain. It was obviously the word of the year, probably 3 or 4 years ago. I'm interested from a technology perspective. Is that still the fundamental of that digital ID or that tracking from the user to the product? And then how are you layering AI on top of this?
So yes, blockchain was, I got really excited when I first saw digital passports because I realized it was already what we built. And so we're really excited about it just because it's going to allow us to know where all of the stuff is. And 80% of retailers' footprint is actually in the manufacturing of the things. So being able to make sure the business model and the retailers are being compensated, I think is really important. I think also being able to track authenticity, I think with the rise of AI, it's never been more important to have a verified structure of data for products. This is off the topic. I also think for people, because the rise of dupes and pretend products and AI slop is just everywhere. I think we've first seen it on social media, but it's going to be quite challenging everywhere. So I think that verified layer of truth is really important. And then I think with the rise of the climate responsibilities, there's climate reporting in Australia. Every item of textiles needs a digital passport next year in the EU and the UK, and even in the US, despite Trump's best efforts. There's a tsunami of legislation coming through. So I really see the digital passport as a commercial tool, but also a compliance tool. So if you sell your item in California, you'll be able to make sure that you're complying with your end of life responsibilities. If you're selling in the EU or the UK, you're matching that digital passport requirement. And in Australia, what's really key for retailers is your scope 3 emissions can be reduced with circularity data, but it's got to be auditable data. It can't be anecdotal. And so this is a really good way of you being able to present that, which I think in the end is going to hit businesses' bottom line. That said, even though I'm an ex-lawyer, I think that that's interesting for the compliance regulatory people. What I am really excited about over the last 6 months is we've really been able to prove the commerciality of what resale can be and what pushing circularity can be to drive primary sales and commercial outcomes for our retail partners.
Does it take a lot for the retail partners to get their head around it? Because on the surface, rental and resale isn't good for selling new items. But then as you explain it, it's that trial of the brand. It's being able to have that cut throughout the life cycle of that product. But then also that brand experience through rental will lead to future sales. Is that difficult for a lot of retailers to get their head around?
I think it has been. I mean, I think we can see now that the biggest threats to retail in this country is Shein and Temu and cheap manufacturers. What I think that has taken some time to penetrate is by promoting things like resale and through Seamlist, is you're actually allowing your customers to monetize your item. It's also what gives your item value. If your item has no resale value, if it cannot earn anybody income, it is valueless. We also know from the data now that just because you promote resale, it's not cannibalizing because most of the people who purchase in the secondary market were never going to purchase from you in the primary market. So there's kind of two ways commercial outcomes that Seamless really pushes. And one that's a bit of like a anecdotal story, but I think it explains it is my uncle is actually in the Hoodoo Gurus. So a lot of what we've built is based on music royalties. So that's sort of where the idea originally came from.
Wow.
But I always kind of laugh because the Hoodoo Gurus are really big in Australia and
Yeah.
strangely Brazil. And I was
Oh,
always confused because, even now my uncle's, 70 and he's like, I just played for 1 million people in Rio. And like a little bit with me was like, I love your music, but why? And it turned out that in the 90s, the Brazilian population could get a few counterfeit CDs. And one of them was the Hoodoo Gurus. And if you think back to the 90s, getting a counterfeit CD was like, it's theft, it's terrible. There was like CD burnings, like it was all, but now looking back, that was distribution. That
yeah.
was the way all these Brazilians now love the Hoodoo Gurus. Bringing it back to retail is I do think it's the biggest untapped opportunity because most people fall in love with a product through using it or buying it on the secondary market. And they may never, ever have bought, say, a Vic and Woods or Age dress. And then they buy it on the secondary market and they love it. And then all of a sudden you start getting these ambassadors. And I think it has been an error to ignore the power of your product and not to see your product as a marketing channel.
And is that almost an experiential thing? So the audience or the consumers who are renting for an occasion, they're doing it often because they might not be able to afford the off the shelf price or see the value in it, especially if you've got a special occasion coming up. But the idea being that, like your hoodoo gurus, is that these brands will be able to cash in 5, 10, 15 years as that consumer goes through their life and can afford the more designer brands and it becomes part of their staple. Is that kind of the mindset?
Yes, I mean, it's even faster than that. We now target everybody who rents an item who's a brand partner. We target them with a voucher to turn them into a primary purchaser. And the same on the secondary market. That's something we're rolling out this year. So this is the first time retailers have actually been able to reach these consumers who may need that's their first interaction with your brand. And
Smart.
so that's turning your product into an acquisition channel.
Yeah, and how many rentals would you get out of a product?
I mean, we're lucky in Australia. Our designers make amazing products. Like they are capable of lots of rentals. Like we've had dresses that have been rented 72 times.
Wow.
But then I think about it, like it's kind of odd that we think that that's surprising
Yeah.
because, vintage clothing, like how often was that worn? And, these are beautifully made occasion wear pieces. They're not jeans. Like people aren't, going to the shops in them. I think the other really strong commercial KPI that we've proven in the last 6 months that I'm so excited about is when our retail partners, and we're about to do a third pilot, when they push resale to their existing audience. Some of this isn't publicly, so I'm just not going to name the names. They say, you're not wearing our brand. Any items that you're not wearing, we encourage you to resell and we reward you with a voucher. And so what that does is it's pushing a sustainable outcome because you're keeping more goods in circulation for longer. You're unlocking latent consumer spending rather than, say, Afterpay, which is
Yep.
leveraging future earnings. You're actually leveraging latent assets that people sell, and then you're incentivizing them to come back and spend that capital with you by purchasing something new. And we've done 3 pilots now, and the results are pretty phenomenal.
That's awesome because I know that's one of the big challenges for brands at the moment is new customer acquisition, especially outside of the traditional channels like Meta. And I could imagine from a designer perspective, if you can target that segment of customer natively, then that's a really great acquisition channel for them.
And I think we also say that quite a lot of our brand partners join for the royalties but stay for the data. I think we haven't even fully explored the power of that data for our retailers and our brands because I think, as you mentioned, things like Meta and things like that are becoming increasingly challenging, really expensive. I also think we only have, I think the data that they make their assumptions on is really small. So it's the tip of the iceberg. Only 20% of transactions in Australia actually happen online. And we're kind of using that 20% and saying extrapolating that for all retail, which I think has been a real error because
Mm.
most people actually want to see things. We're also really unpredictable as people. Like I might really love high heels, but also really love work boots. Like I just don't think we fit into a box like we've been led to believe. But I also think that retailers have really powerful data. And as you kind of mentioned with AI, think that's going to be increasingly an asset they can leverage financially because it's a verified user and it's verified intent. So it's not just this person lives in Sydney, this age. You're actually going to have the history of their purchases. And I think that's really important.
Well, it's also a mindset thing, isn't it? When we talk about shifting from demographics to psychographics, it's about wanting access to those customers who value quality, who are going to events and occasions regularly, who want to be seen, you know what I mean? You're not trying to convince people to buy quality designer wear. That's what
No,
their values are anyway.
no. And I think because of my hedge fund background, I always look at macro trends.
Mm.
And the speed at which resale was growing is just kind of undeniable now. So pre-loved, I think something like 75% of Americans bought one piece of pre-loved clothing last year.
Mhm.
It's growing 7 times faster than traditional apparel. And so also it's a really rising thing that consumers are deciding when they purchase. Like what is the resale value of this? Like I might wear it to this, that, or whatever. Does it hold its value? And if you think about the way we purchase things like cars or
Yeah.
electronics or furniture, it kind of makes sense that we start applying this to other consumer products.
And from a fashion perspective, that's an amazing stat from the US, around 75% having purchased. And we've obviously seen the rise of marketplaces like Depop recently. Are you seeing that that is happening? Is it because of economic factors? They're looking for something that's a little bit cheaper. Are they looking for individuality in terms of being able to find something that's expresses them better? Or is it an environmental concern? It's obviously going to be a mix of all of them, but are you seeing any one factor driving this growth?
It's definitely not environmental. That's like a bonus. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, and it's sustainable. I think shopping has become less exciting. I think I'm a little older than you, but, there was a scarcity in Australia, particularly. Like, when I got Doc Martens, my uncle bought them for me from the US. I think those endorphins lasted me a year. It's now been proven that the endorphins we're getting from buying new, it's really it's up and down, mainly because I think if I see you in something quite a lot of time, I can just go get it. So
Mm,
there's the hunt isn't there in the same way. And so I think people will always buy new. Like this is the other thing is I think we've got to stop thinking everything is black and white. I think
yeah.
people will rent for a black tie event. I think they will buy new and they will also buy pre-loved. I think it will be a combination of all of them. I think the rise of pre-loved is mainly driven around the fact that you do feel like you've won something when you
Yeah.
find like the hidden gem and people just can't wait to say, oh, I got it on Depop or I found it in a thrift shop. So I think there's the thrill of that hunt. I think there's the love of it's unique. Not
Yeah.
everybody is going to be in this. And so I think also because of the rise of algorithmic shopping, a lot, particularly high street brands, there's a sameness. And so I do think consumers are looking for uniqueness.
I think you're absolutely right. There's that story that goes along with it, isn't it? It's either I discovered it, we used to do is I discovered this little shop on this street, blah, 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 or I discovered it in an op shop, whatever it is. It's pretty hard to get excited or to say that out loud if you've found it on Shein or Temu. It's like, I made this great discovery on Temu. It's like you
There's
kind
no
of keep it to
story,
yourself.
and we're
No.
actually despite wanting all the stuff, we still wanna have meaning,
Yeah.
and if you think about, there is a rise of people wanting experiences over products.
Mm.
People still love products, and products still mean things to people, and sometimes it's not necessarily they were the most expensive. It's because I wore that to my 21st, or I wore that to my best friend's wedding, or that's actually a really funny story about that. So I think pre-loved and the rise of thrifting is really giving that meaning back to products. But I don't think that needs to exclude primary retailers because what's hilarious is the products being thrifted are their products. We just need to connect it back to retail.
Underwear brand Nala celebrates difference. Different bodies, different lifestyles, different personalities. That's exactly why they offer more than 80 products across a huge range of sizes, shapes, fabrics, and fits. But celebrating difference creates a challenge because you can't talk to everyone the same way and expect it to land. Personalization isn't optional at Nala. It is core to their mission. From day one, Nala built their growth engine on Klaviyo. By using rich customer data from their online fit library, purchase history, and loyalty program, Nala can segment properly, launch products to the right people, and notify high-intent customers the moment something comes back in stock. The results, they speak for themselves. 6 consecutive quarters of revenue growth, 109 times ROI from Klaviyo, and in Q1 last year, 24% of total revenue was attributed to Klaviyo. When your brand celebrates difference, your marketing should too. If you want to turn personalization into a serious growth lever, head to klaviyo.com/au and see how brands like Nala are scaling smart. You mentioned before the algorithmic changes that are happening, and in your latest Substack, I saw it was a really good article, and you talked about being stuck in CAC purgatory from a Vault perspective because it's actually really hard when people are searching for new things. If we just use traditional Google search to put forward a rental option if people are searching for a formal dress, for example. Tell me about how you see that changing as AI search and LLM search becoming more of a thing. How will that help rental and resale?
So I don't think resale has been as affected as rental, but rental just globally has proven quite hard to scale. I think that's initially because of the B2C model and its costs around that. Peer to peer, we don't have those costs, but it's still been more capital to scale than anticipated. And that's because we have to do so much top of funnel work because I need to trigger person A to type in black tie rental. I need to do so much work top of funnel, which is incredibly expensive for a startup like us. I mean, like if we have more money, I welcome more money because we do know how to do it. It's just expensive because if we stop doing that, the search volumes for rental dry up. And because of the way Google has done that, we haven't been able to, if you just type in Zimmerman, rental, and I understand the thing, rental isn't purchasing, right? It's a service really compared to a product. So I understand why this happened, but it has been a huge challenge for rental. I think LLMs could really change that because people are more and more talking. I think particularly in the US, and we're a little behind in Australia, but I suspect it will move there. People will say to Claude, I'm going to a black tie function. What should I wear? And Claude doesn't work exactly like Google. We'll say, well, if you're only wearing it once, have you thought about rental? So I actually think some scale for the rental industry as a whole could be unlocked by the rise of AI.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think that will make retailers nervous?
If it does, it really shouldn't. Because rental is quite niche. I think that's the other thing is rental is you're not going to be renting, your casual wear. It is like Mecca being nervous of makeup artists. Like it is not something to be worried about. Everyone should be worried about shooting Temu, counterfeiting their products and selling them for literally $2. Rental, I think, should be seen as a way to reach the younger generation, a way of doing that customer acquisition piece. I think it's going to be really powerful. I just know myself of how many brands I've discovered through rental because people are so much more experimental with rental.
Yeah.
Like people ran like feathers and sequins and, something that they probably wouldn't wear normally because
You can
it's
have a bit of
different.
fun.
Yeah, it's fun. So I don't think brands should be nervous about it. Well, particularly if they work with us on Seamlist, because then every time someone does buy something or rent something, you're getting the data, but you're also getting the royalty. I also think that it would be really powerful for a lot of retailers. We have so many of our users, as I said, whose dresses paid for themselves. And so somebody who used to buy Shein and Temu might now buy some of our amazing Australian retailers because the unit economics just make more sense.
So if I'm a retailer listening to this, I'm like, Seamless sounds great. And it's a revenue and also customer channel that we haven't considered before. What are typically the steps? What are the qualifications that you look for in terms of a great retail partner for Seamless?
In the end, it's actually been amazing because we probably initially thought it was going to be more of those higher end designers. But I can't tell if we didn't know or if it's also shifted. But for instance, Cotton On, the amount of interest and the amount of transactions happening for Cotton On the secondary market is truly mind blowing. And, Vinted, who is a really big European resale platform that just launched in the US, they're phenomenal. 90% of their products are what we call fast fashion or high street. And that's because people with fashion still want variety. And
Mm.
so people are buying from Topshop or Zara and they're selling it and the price point is quite low, but it's still transaction after transaction and getting those garments worn more and more. So that's been a real learning over the last couple of years is that, yes, we have this amazing kind of luxury designer pre-loved economy, but there's a lot happening in that high street level. And what is also amazing is the rise of collectibles and what
Ah,
people are collecting. And so there's a lot of people collecting every Camilla caftan, which who
gotcha.
knew, but also people really, and I think, I can only speak to, say, for instance, Cotton On. They do an exceptional job with things like Oasis t-shirts. And I'm not a sport person, but US sport brands. And they sell out and then they sell for more on the secondary market. So I also think that there is this amazing way of leveraging the secondary market and driving scarcity in primary sales to turn it from just a product to a
Yeah.
collectible, which generates this amazing consumer interest in the brand. So I think we saw it with Labubu's is an exceptional example of that, but it's actually happening across all categories.
That's phenomenal. I love that cotton on example, isn't it? Because it's about tapping into those almost micro trends that are happening and obviously amplified now through social and the rise of content creators. The ability then to go, actually, what we're creating will be worth more down the track, but you'll want to stay connected with us from a primary retail perspective to be able to get your hands on it first to open up those opportunities to the secondary market.
Yeah, and it just drives this like because then when next time you drop, it will sell out faster
Yeah.
and faster. So I have to say, I don't know if Cotton On has been on the podcast, but they are the most phenomenal team. Like we have just loved working with them. We've learned so much from them. They are excellent, like a world-class team of retail.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. They haven't been on the podcast.
Oh, we'll get them on there. Michelle.
Michelle, we're coming for you. And tell me about, from a technical perspective, if we've got retailers going, actually, how would I even put this on my site, for example? Is it intensive? Is it easy? How do we go about it?
Yeah, it's zero lift from the retailer's perspective. We get most people up and running within a day. It's all on our end. The only reason that sometimes it takes a day or two is because we have to go back for if you're doing order history, you have to kind of make sure that we know all of your previous catalogs, but it's very low lift. If you're on Shopify, it takes about 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. And commercially, is there any cost up front for the retail partners?
We've got a tiered subscription fees just because we have so much data and for us to kind of house that data to track all these items from the lifespan. So it is a 3 to 5 grand per month, but that also means that you get a large amount of digital passports included in that for free.
And in that, the digital passports give you access to customer data and the ability to contact new customers?
So yes, we built in voucher functionality. So every time someone say buys Cotton On or lists Cotton On, I think usually for the lister, the retailer will decide, okay, for the month of March, anybody who lists a Cotton On item is going to be given a voucher, for instance. But and always on would be anybody who buys that or who rents that garment will get a voucher to become a primary purchaser. And that's
Cool.
all just part of the service.
And I guess from a retailer perspective, really nice too, because that's all trackable too. So in terms of if that's what you're measuring your ROI on, there's no attribution problems.
Well, I think what's really interesting is that, particularly if you promote, okay, in March, it might be, David Jones. If you sell a David Jones item through Seamlist, we'll incentivize you. It's not like, discounting or that's
Mm.
hitting your margin. And you can actually accurately see, well, this drove $500,000 of sales. So it again becomes another strategy you can use to kind of like free shipping or discounting. And I think in retail, we're all beginning the last few years to really understand that consumers are bloody savvy these days and they're just waiting for what can I do to get the best deal? And
Yeah.
whether that's, your honey kind of discounting codes, but people are getting incredibly savvy. So I think having more and more things in your toolkit to drive sales is going to be important.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things that I was most impressed about your latest Substack, so I'm a little bit obsessed.
I feel like I backed it with my Substack.
I know. I love it. I really enjoyed it. I went deep. You were really clear around one of the things you're proud of is that you're now profitable, and I'm assuming that's for the Vault.
Yes.
And it's not an easy model to be profitable on. We've seen players come and go, obviously not with the exact same model, but around similar spaces. What has been your secret to getting this model to a profitable form?
We call ourselves cockroach founders. No.
We just don't go away.
Look, I think it's been a real challenge, like the biggest challenge by far. We know how to make most things work. I think there's always things in the marketplace you want to improve. The biggest challenge has been marketing. And we got this most amazing head of marketing. She's fractional, Alicia McCall. She runs Ultimate Edge Marketing. She changed marketing for us in so many ways. And a lot of that means that over 50% of our sales come from existing customers. And that has been a game changer. And that's how we were able to get to profitability. In addition, taking $1 million of costs out of our business over the last year through AI efficiencies. So, I'm across AI. I have concerns about AI, but from a cost of as a business owner, the efficiency gains have been massive.
Where did you find the biggest efficiencies?
Using Claude Code, just me personally, I would say I'm 10 times more effective.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just the velocity. Plus, you know, I think if we think about the rise of the internet, anything that could be digitalized, music, you know, content was, I think with AI, we should think anything that can be automated should be. So if there is any degree of repetition, automate.
So you're Claude coding your way to efficiency.
I'm not a coder, well, I'm a hobby coder.
Aren't we all now?
Zero hates that. But I would say the tools in the last few months have become incredibly powerful for non-technical people.
Mm.
So I really encourage everybody, and I don't want to preach to people. It's just because I'm in this and I feel like not everybody is across it. The free tools and the paid tools are really different. So
Yes.
Claude Cowork has changed my life. Like it's just, you can do like, you give it like, can you do a competitor analysis? Can you look at this, look a dashboard? Can you do this? And it's all doing that simultaneously, which is just insane. And I also think that busy work that we all have become really accustomed to with updating trackers and, you know, tracking the tracker, all of that is gone. But I think also things like customer service, you're able to do automation, but you're also able to do personalization at a
Mm.
scale that wasn't possible before.
Do you think you'd enjoy your legal career more now or less?
I'm not sure there's going to be many lawyers. I'm pretty glad to be out of that. Claude's an excellent lawyer. I'd be a bit worried being a lawyer. I'm sure. I'm hopefully. Don't tell my lawyer friends. But
No, they won't hear it.
we're
Don't
still
worry.
going to need lawyers in the accountability chain. But I don't think we're going to have these pyramid systems.
Yeah, yeah. I love it.
Expanding into new markets isn't just about selling more. It's about selling smarter. Every region has its own rules, currencies, and customer preferences. But with Shopify, global expansion is simple. Localized storefronts, tailor experiences, and build trust, all from one unified platform. Shopify removes complexity so that you can focus on growth and deliver tailored shopping experiences for every market, in-store and online. Accept over 100 currencies with Shopify payments for fast, familiar checkouts, and use built-in analytics to identify your most profitable markets. One platform built for global adaptability so you can scale without growing pains. Visit Shopify for Enterprise to learn more and start selling worldwide.
Question for you. I saw that you've got Kelly Hush on board, and Kelly was one of our first podcasts, actually. She would have been in the
She's
first
horrible,
50.
isn't she?
Horrible. Just doesn't know what she's talking about with fashion, has no clue about anything to do with fashion. No, incredible to have someone of Kelly's expertise and stature in working with you. What have you learned from Kelly?
Oh, mainly dirty jokes and stuff.
Worth every penny.
No, she is just phenomenal. She's really lovely, but she's commercial. She's so energetic because, you know, I learned quickly, wow, you really need someone who knows about fashion if you're going to try and work with fashion people. And so I actually researched in COVID and just cold called Kelly. And it has been the most amazing relationship. We really kind of yin and yang. And our third co-founder, Genevieve, who you saw me yell at before, but we just get along and we all are quite different. But no, Kelly is just phenomenal. I think that's how, because, you know, everything, the values that like I'm talking to you about the fact that Seamless promotes commercial outcomes. I was saying that in 2021. And that's just because things take time to build, they take time to scale. But one of the reasons that we've hardly ever lost a retail partner is because Kelly's in-depth knowledge of retail means we've been able to deliver value. Even if the royalties have been relatively long tail, we've been able to deliver them value in terms of how we work with them, the data we have. And I think that expertise just is so important. And I I've started calling Kelly like our moat because, you know, with AI, a lot of like, you know, we're saying everything that can be automated will be automated. What you can't automate is reputation and experience. You can't spin up an AI version of Kelly. We can try.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're going to try, aren't you?
But, you know, you trust people especially
Yeah.
people you've worked with before.
Yeah, incredible. It sounds like you've got all the pieces there. And I love that, you know, it's 6 years. It must feel like forever for you, but gaining real traction and making a huge impact there. What's the next 12 months look like for you and the team? What are your big goals?
We're really excited to scale here we're doing multiple platforms. So we were just with eBay. We're now working with multiple resale platforms, and we're really scaling both our retail partners, but we're really finally, because everyone talks in tech about this flywheel. Sometimes the flywheel takes such a big shove to get spinning, whereas now our flywheel's spinning. So we add a retail partner, it brings more consumers. So that's been really exciting because it just did take a little bit of time, but the consumer adoption is skyrocketing. And I feel really excited that it is delivering value. Like we kind of see it as a three-sided value. So we deliver value to your eBay because they really need authenticated products. They need more people to go on the supply side. We deliver value to our retail partners. And then we're also making it easier for consumers to monetize and earn from their asset.
Yeah.
So I think we're in that scale up stage, which is exciting because the startup stage we kind of called last year the year of the grind. And then this is the year of momentum. But I think what is exciting is that some of the things that we've talked about is beginning to cross over and retailers are beginning to really understand. And I think also there's an understanding because I think it has been to our detriment. A lot of things that have been in this space have been connecting retail to resale through products and inventory. And that just isn't scalable, which is why you've seen a lot of companies go bust. Whereas we're connecting retail to resale through their consumers and through an existing behavior. So there's not that behavior change. So I'm really excited that that is happening. And it just means that we can scale so much faster. And then we are also scaling internationally.
Oh, just throw that on the end.
Yes. Touch wood. I don't want to say it. And the next year I'm like, now we're scaling internationally.
Brazil, apparently a really good market.
I hear they love the Hoodoo Gurus.
Bernadette, I love it. I love the vision that you've stuck with it for 6 years and that it's profitable now. The flywheel is going. But what I love most is that you're actually making shopping exciting again. So whether that be that discovery that you talked about and being able to find something that's unique, that has a story, or whether it's about people taking ownership of their wardrobe and actually going, I can get more value out of my investments here. I think it actually becomes, for people who love fashion and love designer wear, is that it becomes exciting again, that it doesn't just become a commodity. So I think that's a brilliant story, and I'll be fascinated where you are another 6 years from now. So thank you for sharing everything the Volte and Seamlist today.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Loved it. Thanks, Nathan.
I'll be honest with you, there is so much going on in the world of circularity, resale, rental, and we've had a few conversations around in the past. They're always fascinating, and I feel we're going through a bit of a flux at the moment, post the sustainability peak, I think you would call it, where it's actually tougher to get those messages across as people are looking for bargains and probably reverting to old ways of shopping. There is that risk that all of this falls away, but I was so happy to hear Bernadette's journey over 6 years, but also the growth momentum that they're on, both with the Volte and with Seamless, from both a tech play and a business model perspective. There are 3 things that I want to pull out for you from this episode that I think you can bring into your own business to have a think about. Number 1, have a think about whether your product's job ends at the checkout. Because Bernadette made it pretty clear. Most retailers don't know what happens to their product post-purchase. Even if they set up all the Facebook groups and help facilitate some resale, most of the time they actually lose track of that product after that first purchase. But through resale integrations like Seamless, you can actually see where your product is being resold. You can reward resale with vouchers. You can earn royalties on every secondary transaction. And you can even turn your product into a recurring commercial asset. So that is pretty powerful, especially if you're a designer, a brand, or a retailer who is investing in quality products, not cheap and nasty products. If that is you, then this could be a really great secondary revenue model and a way to engage your community and your customers long term. Secondly, I think this helps reposition how we talk about value at the point of purchase. Some dresses on the Volte have been rented more than 50 times. And as we heard from Bernadette, some dresses from some brands actually pay for themselves in 6 months. When customers know that an item has resale or rental value, and there are avenues like the Volte to help them realize that opportunity, they're more likely to trade up in quality, to justify that higher price point, to view that purchase as an asset and not necessarily as a cost. This sounds like all kind of information that's going to come back and bite me in my personal life. But it's a story that you need to be telling at that point of purchase to re-emphasize the value in the price point rather than pushing towards discounts. And the third thing I picked up is, even though it was a bit of a downer around talking about sustainability isn't a huge selling point anymore, from a business perspective, we need to be really clear whether circularity is compliance or growth. Resale is growing significantly faster than traditional apparel. We're seeing that through all the numbers. It's disjointed, but it's growing. Most customers buying secondary were never going to buy primary at full price. It wasn't an option. Bernadette's pilots showed that resale promotions unlock latent spending, vouchers reactivate lapsed customers, and the whole thing is measurable. Circularity doesn't always have to sit in sustainability. It can sit in acquisition and retention too. So think about whether you are positioning circularity as a business opportunity right in your business. It's not a tick the box exercise. It's actually a lever for growth. Now, if this episode has got you thinking about rental, resale, lifecycle revenue, or turning your product into a marketing channel, that's the kind of conversations we love happening in the Add to Cart community. Come over and ask your questions about that. I am very, very confident that we have retailers in there who are currently running resale and rental programs. Ask your questions in there, get first-hand advice. You can join us over on addtocart.com.au. It's free to join. We'd love to see you in there. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I hope you picked up something that you can take into your business. I'll see you next time on Add to Cart.